Welcome back to Fueled by Coffee Podcast. This is Matt, your host, and I'm welcoming you all back for another episode. I am here today with my good friend John. It's been a long time since you've been on. I think it's been almost 2 years. I think the last one we did was the Dirty Couch episode.
Sounds about right.
So it's been a minute, but yeah, man, stoked to be back here today. For those who are new, this is a podcast centered around coffee and conversation. Just like to get together, talk about life and music and all sorts of great stuff with my friends. So, and actually, the cool thing about today's episode is it is the 4th anniversary of this podcast. I don't know if it's like exact to the date, so don't hold me to that, but it's like the first episode was posted sometime in November of 2019. It was like mid-November, so this is as close as we're going to get. So happy birthday, Fueled by Coffee, I guess.
Nice.
But yeah, so for those who are new here, you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, follow us on Spotify and YouTube. We've got all sorts of episodes, and we got a lot of great ones planned on the way. As I said, this is a podcast centered around coffee. John was so gracious to brew the coffee today because we're actually at the truck stop. Shout out to Food Truck and John and Jack in their house. We're sitting in the living room right now. But John, what did we have today? What is this?
So it's just Dunkin. My favorite coffee, and it's the actual beans I buy, is Dunkin brand.
You grind them?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So if you grind them right before you use them, they taste better, and I'm sure it's more potent or something, but
right.
That's how I usually do it. And I guess I'm a little bit cheap too, so it's like $10 for a bag of beans. So Dunkin's what I do. And then we actually have Wawa creamer.
Wawa, please sponsor me. How did you get it? Because it's like, for those who don't know about Wawa, they have like a coffee station with these like cartons of creamer. Can you just buy those at the store?
You can. I don't think you're supposed to take the ones from the coffee station. If you go to like the milk section, like where they keep the milk.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They have like a protein shake type of dairy section, where all the drinks are, and they had like a couple things of creamer. And yeah, they're the same exact ones you'd see at the coffee station. So I just snagged one of those.
Hell yeah. I didn't know you could do that. That's interesting. I do love their hazelnut creamer. I think I've used most of them.
The hazelnut's good, but the Irish cream is just like my go-to with any creamer.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Good stuff, man. Yeah, so I guess let's just jump right in. Holy shit. So it's been, like I said, 4 years, and you were actually on the second ever episode of the podcast. It's crazy.
I'm a repeat offender.
It's crazy to think that was that long ago, though. It was just like, for those who don't know, I started this when I was working overnight. I was frying donuts for Giant, and I would just kind of like come up with a bunch of ideas in the middle of the night, and I just had this thought one night. I was like I was kind of like running through a story that had happened in my life in my head, and I was kind of like, oh man, like this would be really cool on a podcast, just like having friends on and talking about life and all that sort of stuff. And like, so that later that day I texted my friend Aaron. We did the first ever episode within days, and then I got together with John, and it's just crazy like to look back and to think like like it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it also feels like forever ago. Do you ever have things like that?
All the time. Yeah, like I think about that with the band. So I'm in Food Truck, as he said, and we've been a band as of now 6 years. I think our anniversary is September or October. So either way,
that's crazy to think about too. That's a long time.
Mm-hmm. But it also feels like not that long. But then sometimes it feels like super long. I think it just depends what specifically you're looking at too. Right. Like sometimes when I think about being friends of Ryan and Miles, it feels like forever because I've known them for a long time, but I haven't known them too much longer than the band's existence. Right. But then sometimes when I think about like we have a song called Saturday that we wrote, probably was our most successful, but now we have some other songs that are kind of gaining some momentum. And I feel like it wasn't that long ago that I wrote or co-wrote Saturday. Yeah. And so it's like, it just depends what you're looking at sometimes. Like you might think about your podcast and just, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like, it just
absolutely
depends what you're looking at. But yeah, I feel that dual feeling of like, that contradicting feeling of like time,
Yeah. And I guess let's just talk about Food Truck for a little bit, because it's been So I had you guys on. You guys were the first episode of season 2, so that was 2020. So that was a long time ago too.
Yeah.
I think we're overdue for another food truck episode.
Absolutely.
So like when we did that first podcast, it's funny. I actually wrote in my notes here because I was thinking about like how different things are now, right? Like where we were then versus where we are now. And it's like it was only 4 years, right? We were 21 and 22, and now it's like we're 25, 26. But it's crazy because like I feel like I've grown up a lot since then. You know, like I feel like I look back and I was still just like a kid, like doing stupid shit and like kind of I'm still finding my way.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
But it's like you look back then and you're like, oh man, you were a baby back then, you know?
Well, you think in the moment you're the oldest you ever were.
Yeah.
So you carry yourself like that. But sometimes you look back and you're like, who did I think I was? You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And it's crazy because you had mentioned on that episode, it's called Foal's Circle for anyone wondering. We were talking about there was a lot of stuff we talked about. We can talk about in a minute, but you had just said on that episode, like, oh yeah, we're going into the studio to record these singles, and it was Motel Decaf. So that shows how long ago that was. That was so long ago.
Our first EP was called Dog, and then our big follow up to that was the double single, which was Motel Decaf and a song called Danger. And that is funny. So yeah,
do you guys still play either of those?
Yes, we do actually. That's like a deep cut, but some people really like those songs. Motel Decaf, fun fact, Motel Decaf was like the first song that me and Miles wrote, and when we met Ryan, we brought that song to him, and then obviously, you know, we food trucked it. That's what we call that.
Yeah.
And now we're going to record a new album in late December or mid-December. So yeah, it's weird.
Let's talk about that for a minute. So like what exactly, I mean, I know what you guys are going to do, but for the listeners, like what exactly is the plan? Like what, do you guys have anything written yet? Like what is your guys' kind of, I don't know, like roadmap going into that, I guess, or, you know?
Yeah. So I feel like every now and then I'll have a really good idea. Yeah. And I've somehow got this idea in my head, and it's been done, so I didn't think of this on my own, but somehow I was just compelled to, you know, take the band on a trip and we record somewhere remotely. And I've seen plenty of other bands do that. Yeah. And it always seemed like such a cool concept, like basically stripping down, like, you know, not bringing all the gear in the world, just bringing all the gear that you absolutely need, so keeping it minimalistic.
Sure.
And then just bringing yourself, the band, and maybe engineer and maybe like one other person or something.
Yeah.
Getting away from the world and just working on an album or an EP and like putting yourself in a different mindset or headspace. And so I told Miles and Ryan, and Miles liked the idea pretty much right away. Ryan was a little hesitant because he's kind of like, well, we could probably get a better product recording here at the studio where everything's available. And I get what he was saying, but eventually I talked him into the idea. He came around to it, and we talked to the engineer, Matt Mulchaney, who we always record with from Shards, and he said yes right away. He was really into it and thought it was a great idea. And then we worked all the money stuff out. We got Noah Reichard to kind of be like an assistant engineer. He plays in the redos, and he also does sound for Arts Quest, and he's just all around great musician, great friend. So we got him to jump on board too.
Nice.
So two great guys that know music and know how to record, and then obviously us. And yeah, so we're going to upstate New York. I left that out. Upstate New York, and it's this place called Mushroom Palace, and it's kind of like a little cabin type thing.
Nice.
And we're going to bring all our gear, like I said before, like our number one gear. Like I'm bringing my main bass, my main amp, and my pedal board, and then that's it. Like I'm keeping it simple. And we're trying to record an album, but as of now, we have about 6 or 7 songs.
Okay.
So our ultimate goal was like 10, but we're going for quality over quantity. So if we don't get 10, it's, you know, no pressure. It's just we'd like an album, but obviously I think 8 technically counts.
Yeah, I would say so.
So
I think 8 is like the perfect amount of songs, because I've done 10, 12 song releases before, and I've done, like, I feel like an EP of like 5 or 6 songs is just too short, but then like I've done 10 or 12, which I feel like for a local project is like just too long, but I feel like 8 is like the perfect.
I agree.
Like for me,
I think good.
For me personally, like I feel like it holds my attention. Like I don't fall off the wagon. You know, sometimes you're listening to an album and you kind of get bored. I feel like 8 is that perfect. Like it has your attention long enough that it, you know. But yeah, I think 8 songs is like the perfect. What would you say, Jack? Is 8 songs the perfect length of an album?
An album?
Yeah.
Can you hear me on the mic? I would say 8 if it's 8 really good ones.
Yeah.
I think if it's 8 really bad songs, then it makes a good album. I think.
Let me rephrase that.
I think a perfect EP is 5 songs and a perfect album's 10 songs.
Really?
That's just my but like you said, quality. You know, if it's quality songs, then sure.
If you can condense an album into 8 really good songs, I prefer that over a longer one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's
I think
what I was
any
just
number.
saying. Yeah.
I think any number. If you were that good, you could do one fucking song. You know what I mean? If
Sure.
people want to hear more music, that means you did the right amount.
Yeah.
But if someone's sick of listening to your album or your EP by the end, that means you kept too many songs.
Well, what about bands that do like fucking 15 to 20 songs on an album?
I hate that.
That's too long?
I
right?
hate that. I think that's wrong.
But like, so getting back to the whole like you guys recording thing, so you're saying like you're gonna try and like strip it down, make it more simplified. But like I feel like you guys are like obviously you have your little things you do in the studio with like synth and you know like additional effects. But like, what is that like gonna look like for you guys? Like stripping down even further and.
So we'll record, and then when we're done, I think this is kind of how I got Ryan more on board. Was we're gonna go back to the studio and do overdubs or mix, and then master all that stuff. So like I kind of was like, we're gonna record the bulk of it there in New York, and then we can come back and go to the studio, and then that's kind of like the best of both worlds. And so that's the big thing is we're really not. If anyone was concerned about us losing something, we're not, because we're just getting the main tracks down. You know.
Do you guys? So you were saying about overdubbing. Do you still do where you do like a live take and then just go back and like punch in or fix things? Like how do you do that?
We do bass and drums.
Okay.
We do live tracking, but you know, obviously we'll do like 5, if not like 20 tries to get it perfect.
Sure.
And we usually don't keep mess ups. Like me and Ryan are pretty tight, so we'll nail a whole entire song, and then we'll come back, and guitar will play with us too, but more so as a placeholder, and then we'll have guitar do overdubs and vocals do overdubs.
Nice.
And sometimes we'll go in and correct like a little mistake, but for the most part, the bass and drums that you hear is live tracked. It's just mixed and all that stuff.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, I always wondered that because I know you had said about you guys doing overdubs and live tracking. I wasn't sure like how you did that because I know we're kind of doing a similar thing. So Maddie's going to fly out from Colorado to Nashville, and me and Pete are going to drive down to Nashville in February. And
I remember you saying this.
We were talking about like what the best way to record would be because normally we program drums, whereas like we got this electric kit now, and we're going to run it into the interface as a MIDI and run it through Easy Drummer. So instead of having those like shitty samples on the drum kit, it's going to be like sound like a real drum kit on Easy Drummer. And Maddie had said something about like, what if we record the demos like as like a live track, and then we like, do you guys go to a click on the live track, or do you just?
I was going to also bring that up. I'm glad you were reading my mind.
I have lots of questions.
We don't play to a click. We've tried, and just I don't know. We're all just not good enough or something. Like, it's funny because I used to mainly play drums, and even back then, like a metronome was a little intimidating sometimes.
It is. And
to play a whole song to a click is way harder than you think.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. It's just the three of us. We just, I don't know if it's just Miles or it's just me or whoever, but like we can't play to a click. I'd like to think it's all of us.
It's like, it's like getting 3 people perfect like on board. Like I feel like a lot of big bands, like you hear all the time about people stressing about metronomes and stuff, but I feel like when it comes down to it, like being realistic, it's not it's not always just that simple as like, oh, you got to fucking play to a click. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know,
And
like,
sometimes it's just tendencies. Like sometimes people have a tendency to play like a hair behind the beat.
Yep.
Sometimes they like to play a hair ahead the beat.
Yep.
And that's fine. There's always a place for that. But when you have someone playing right on the beat, someone playing behind, and then someone else playing ahead, then it sounds like shit.
yeah, absolutely.
And like if you're going for a recording, you want it to be almost perfect, if not perfect. And it's hard enough to already get it that way. So
Sure.
we have
Yeah.
me and him. We always joke around that we are like a metronome, like like the bass drum connection.
Yeah.
And so it's just wherever he does, I know he's gonna do, and then he knows what I'm gonna do. So it's like we're synced up. And so I feel like sometimes us doing live tracking is honestly better because like when a really big moment comes, I think we might speed up just like a fraction of a BPM.
Yeah.
But I honestly think music sounds better like that because when the musicians get excited, they play harder, louder, or maybe even a hair faster.
Sure.
And it's like those little nuances that sometimes maybe having a metronome hides. Covers that emotion up.
Yeah, no, I totally feel that, honestly.
That's like a rare little thing that I tell myself that makes you feel better about not doing the metronome.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I don't know. The reason I'm asking all this is because I'm trying to get like in my head how we're gonna do this too. Because like Maddie and I have experience playing together. I jammed with Pete once, so it's gonna like be bringing the three of us together. Is like how are we gonna do that?
Is Pete playing drums?
Yeah,
nice.
And he's gonna also help with like producing too. Mm-hmm. So like. Good stuff, man. What is the new stuff sounding like? Before we wrap up and move on from this.
Sure. So if anybody is listening, listen to Shift.
Yeah.
Our last
I was
EP
just listening to it
Shift.
on the way over here.
Yeah, it sounds like Shift, but like to the next level, like a little more evolved. So we kind of dive deeper into that sound.
Okay.
But it's also like too soon to say because like right now we have 5 songs that are finished. And then we have like a couple others that are in the works. And so it's like, I don't know exactly how all the songs sound like cohesive wise, but I would say we just keep getting better and more mature with our music. So I feel like it sounds like Shift, but even better. And it just goes down that. It's no, I'm excited. Yeah. And this has got some good songs because we did the classic food truck where like maybe Miles writes like 3 songs and then I write 2. So there's some songs that I wrote start to finish pretty much, and then there's songs that he wrote start to finish. So it's a really cool split. But then also there's songs that we collaborated like we normally do. So it's like got a little bit of everything, which is like I think the best way to show our talent.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how Maddie and I always were. Like there were a lot of songs where like there's a couple songs that like I pretty much wrote the whole thing and then he just like sang on,
and he might have added something
like the bass or something, or like or like he would bring a whole idea to me and we might write like the bridge together, and that's really it. But like the best songs that we did were the ones that like we sat down and wrote together at the same time. You know, dude, that's cool. I'm stoked to hear it. Yeah. So speaking of like writing music, let's jump in right now because I wanted to do a whole episode on this, but I don't feel like we could do a whole hour on this, but let's just touch on it right now. We always talk about your solo music. We did a whole episode on your album Dirty Couch, and the one thing we always end up talking about is you had this album called, well, I guess it was an EP called 459 that you put out, and around the time of that second podcast, right?
Another late night conversation. I watch the sunset, I watch the sunrise. Close the blinds. Through the good and the bad, you had my back. When the walls started caving, you had my.
And we always talk about just like how like I go back to it frequently because it's like it's very raw, right? Like the production is like it's like super lo-fi, but it's like such a vibe.
I know.
Like
it's hard to compete with myself sometimes because I feel like I really hit something with that one.
But and it's cool though because I feel like I don't know, I guess as musicians, like every new thing we put out, we would like to think is like a step up, right? Or like that, or like
you want to think you're evolving and
moving
forward. Yeah.
Right. And but I don't know. I just feel like that was like such a core part of like your songwriting as an individual.
Definitely.
I don't know. I guess maybe just like walk through.
Yeah,
Like when
I'll
you,
tell
like,
the story.
I remember. Yeah, I remember. I didn't hear any of those songs until like they were pretty much all done. I remember I came over. We were unemployed, right? And
Horrible time.
we were both unemployed, and it's funny because I came over and you were like, "Oh, check this out," and you were working on the end of Jumpstart.
Oh yeah, that's the best song.
And
I love
like,
all the songs, but that's the best one.
And you were like, "Oh, what should I do at the end?" Because I feel like it just like abruptly stopped or something, and then we went. I was like, we were just kind of talking about it, and you ended up going with that record
It
wind
swooped down. Yeah, it was like
it took you like
pitched
half hour to do that.
Lonesome and long.
Yeah, you can only record it like live, so you had to nail it.
Yep.
So I had to keep recording it, and it was like the most minute detail, and it sounds great, but yeah, I it was annoying.
but then, so I remember that day after you got done with that, you showed me pretty much all the other songs, and I was like, whoa, because I know you had done the acoustic demo.
Yeah,
you had this acoustic demo, which like I love, but at the time I was kind of like, okay, you know, it's John playing his guitar or whatever. But then you showed me this, and I was like fucking blown away. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it's cool how much stuff you can do when you like just don't try. Like that was my problem. Is I think a lot of times I'd gatekeep my music because I'd be like, well, where is this going? Why am I doing this? Like I just stopped asking questions and just was like, well, let's see what happens. Like what if I add this? What if I add that? And then you just go down a rabbit hole. But if you just don't stop yourself, you'll end up building something like really cool or something not cool, but you don't have to show anyone. Like it's, you know what I mean? It's you gotta write some bad songs too sometimes, and luckily I hit gold with that one, but I would have never hit gold if I didn't just let myself get it out. You know?
Yeah, I feel like with me, what ends up happening is I end up I almost end up playing it like too safe. If that makes
That's
sense.
what I'm talking about. That was what would have prevented me, was because I would have wrote another acoustic demo, and I think what happened was I played guitar and then I put it on a loop because I already like doing that a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if I add, instead of, because you have your metronome going to keep the time and everything in sync, but I was like, what if I add like a little bit of percussion, and then I added 808s or something either on accident or just to hear what it sounds like. And I was like, whoa.
Is that what ended up being?
I think that's what got me the idea.
Okay.
I was just like adding just like drums, and once I added like keys, it was like kind of sounding like a little more like, I don't want to say Lil Peep, but like a mix between like actual guitars with like sample beats and stuff.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like, so like when we're talking about holding yourself back, like for me it's like not being honest enough. Like I almost like not get scared, but for me I'm like, oh my god, like what if people take this the wrong way? But I feel like the best music is when I just don't give a fuck, and when I just like I have these songs that I actually did a recording thing up in Vermont a couple back in, well, I guess the time of this going up, it was about a month ago in October. And like the songs I wrote, it was just like stuff that came to me and I thought was cool, and like it could be maybe taken the wrong way by some people, but it's like,
no,
to me it was like authentic, and like I'm excited about it.
it.
Like I write music all the time, but it's not something that I'm always like, oh, this is sick. Like, you know, I have this one song that's going to be coming out in December called it's called Hey Colorado, and it's just about like, it's kind of like a synopsis of my time living out there, like all the things I learned, all the things I, you know, dealt with, and like that's like I think one of the best songs I've ever written, because I was just honest.
That's what you got to do,
and I just
exactly,
let it. I just let it flow. Like the vocals are like this. It was cool the way I recorded it. I had like one microphone, like, you know, like maybe a foot away in the front, and then it was a small cabin. So then I put one on the other side of the room in the kitchen.
Dude, that's we're thinking about doing stuff like that.
Oh, dude,
talking about the cabin stuff. Yeah.
And so like the vocals, if you've ever listened to like Pat the Bunny. Or like
you show me him,
like like that kind of folk punk stuff, and like the vocals are very like yelly. Like, so I did overdubs and stuff too. I one of the tricks I always do that you and I have always talked about is doing like a really like a low a low melody and just tucking it. Like I always do that, but yeah, it's like the main vocals are very like shouty. And so it was cool because it picked up those acoustics bouncing off the wooden walls and stuff.
Yeah.
And like I was able to get, like, I really didn't have to use barely any reverb post because it was like it came from the room, you know. But it's like stuff like that, that's when you end up making the best music, is when you don't put those limitations on yourself and you're just like thinking. Or like the one track I wrote, so I have this song called Midwest that I put out like 2 years ago, and I wrote a part 2 while I was in this cabin, and like for the guitars it's all acoustic, acoustic guitars, and what I did is I did like one like I mic'd close to the guitar, but then the other one, so there was this beam running across like kind of like across the ceiling in the cabin, and I took the microphone and I like put it up over the beam and had it pointing down. So it was up probably like 10 feet in the air.
Oh, that's pretty sick.
Hanging over, so like it's capturing the room sound of the
mic,
guitar.
yeah.
So like stuff like that is really, really cool. And I think it like takes, so like my whole point is like with these songs, I'm really excited because I just like let loose and I just said what I felt instead of being like, oh no, someone might not like this, you know?
Well, that's why it's better, is because you feel better about it, one.
Yeah.
And then you probably make a better product too. So it's like, it's just the best thing to do. I mean, obviously there's got to be some filter, there's got to be some judgment, but like you can't just put yourself in a box and then have everything safe, because you're never going to wow anyone by playing everything safe.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. One, yeah. And just like weird side note, I mean, I know you're a huge Bob Dylan fan. Bob Dylan was like a big inspiration, like to me going and doing that. When I was out in Colorado, I listened to so much Bob Dylan. It was ridiculous. And I was like, man, I want to do an album in this style. And like the whole thing isn't just like that was going to be what it was going to be, was like a folk, punk, rock, whatever it was album. But it's like maybe half of it is like more folky. And then the other half there is like, I don't know, a more mix of like punk, pop punk, kind of like alternative stuff. But I love,
he's a true lyricist.
I love Bob Dylan.
If you want to talk about not filtering yourself and all that stuff, like I don't think he's ever like, you know, let it not flow. Like he's the king of letting it flow.
Yeah. He's so good, dude. He was one when I was out in Colorado. There was this song. It's funny. It's on The Walking Dead, the TV show. It's at the end of the first season. There's this whole scene where so for context, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows what The Walking Dead is. It's like a post-apocalyptic zombie TV show, whatever. But in the last episode of the first season, they go to like the CDC headquarters, and it ends up like blowing up. And so like the last scene before the credits is like all of them like driving away, like, well, what the fuck do we do now? But they play this Bob Dylan song called "Tomorrow Is a Long Time."
Off the top of my head, I don't know it.
But it's a live version too.
Wow.
But it's like, I remember it came on and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then I used that app Shazam and I was like, oh shit, this is Bob Dylan. And then like I have Bob Dylan's album, Bringing It All Back Home.
Yeah, that's the first album I ever got, the vinyl.
It's so good. But then like that song, Tomorrow Is a Long Time, it was like, I remember when I was coming to the end of my time in Colorado and like, you know, I felt content about leaving, right? Because I was like, I have, you know, my friends and like the comforts of Pennsylvania back home, but it was like leaving behind the friendships that I built there and like some of the memories, you know. That song was very like, you know, it was very, the word is lame, but like comforting in a way. But no, I highly recommend that song. That's such a great song.
I'll have to check it out right after this.
Yeah. Are there any other points you like want to or can touch on?
Yeah, I wanted to tell the story real quick.
Yeah,
the story's going to be really
Don't
good.
tell it quick. Just take however much time you need.
Okay, so I think it came out in 2019, like February 2019.
Yeah, we weren't working, so that sounds about right.
Yeah, and my idea originally, because the music was so different from anything I had ever done, was to release it under like a different name.
Oh,
I thought that was cool.
I forgot about this. Yeah.
Yeah. So I came up with the name Sean Malice. I thought that would be cool. And then that kind of fell through, but I did try to push that idea a little bit. And then eventually I was like, this is me. Like, why am I trying to make like a different name or an alter ego? And so I released it under my name, and it was 5 songs, and it's called 459. And yeah, it's hard to beat because it was just like I hit my stride with it. But I'm working on solo music now, and I have 5 or 6 songs.
Oh, word.
And the project's going to be called Barther, because the guy that we recorded with, Matt Mulchaney, used to play this game with his partner. Well, they still do, I guess. But he's telling me they play this game where they combine 2 names, and they try to make like the grossest name. Like John and Matt could be Mon or Jat.
Yeah.
But he would think of way funnier ones. And one he thought was funny was Bart and Arthur.
Okay.
And he was like, Barther. And I was like, dude, that's like the perfect. And I had made this art, like this really funny face with like, it just is like a shitty cartoon, but it looks attractive. Like it's attractively shitty.
Yeah.
Like Basquiat's my favorite artist, and sometimes he has art like that where it's like really messy, but it's also super beautiful.
Okay.
And it's like makes you think about life.
Sure.
Life is super messy, but it's also beautiful. And so I did kind of like a little, not a stick figure because it's more detailed than that, but like a shitty fucking drawing on purpose called Barther. And I liked it so much, I was like, this should be my fucking EP. So now I'm doing the EP called Barther, and I have 5 songs. So wait, I'll just read them off, actually.
Is it still John Mackey?
Yeah, it's going to be John Mackey.
It's just called, the EP is called Barther. Okay. Interesting.
I'm excited. And it's kind of a mix. Like, it's like 4-5-9, but in some ways it's different.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty good about it. So I don't know what's going to come out first. There's 2 songs on there that are going to be on the Food Truck album.
Oh, cool.
So, like, they're my own versions.
Okay.
But, like, I don't think I want to release them, like, too much before Food Truck's release. Like, if I release them now, I don't want to get too many sneak peeks.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, I kind of a weird problem, but yeah. So that's what I'm working on.
Nice. Yeah, I'm actually kind of doing the same thing. So, like, this, not many people are going to listen to this, so I'm going to talk about it right now. So I have my second book is going to be coming out next summer. I'm shooting for June, but like I'm trying to make this more of like an art project than like other than just being writing or just doing music. I was talking to Pete and he was saying about like, oh dude, what if you like just do everything under one umbrella instead of it being like Fueled by Coffee and Union Coffee Break and DSP Poetry and Met and this and that. He was like, why don't you just do everything together?
What are you gonna call it?
Well, it's gonna be like Dollar Store Bukowski. So
everything's gonna be called that?
Well, except for the podcast is still going to be Fueled by Coffee, but yeah, like the music. Like, so what I'm doing is I have 10 songs recorded, but I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Is like I might cut it down to 8 because there are 2 songs that I'm like not really sure about. Like they go together, and it's sucky because if I cut one, I have to cut both. Mm-hmm. But so it's going to be like 8 to 10 songs that I've recorded, and it's actually going to be like a companion to the next book. So it's kind of funny because I'm releasing this song in December, which is going to be the announcement for the album, and the album's going to be the announcement for the book.
I was thinking a segue by segue.
Yeah, so like I think the album I'm shooting for like February, and then the book I'm shooting for like June. So it's going to be like a chain of events, but
like a human centipede.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's actually what it's going to be called now.
Oh, okay. The centipede people.
But it's cool because I feel like it's one of those. I don't know. I feel like it's like listening to the songs. It's like a sum of everything I've done. There's like some lo-fi elements from like the Halo stuff. There's the more angsty stuff that was like Union Coffee Break, and then there's the more like Sunday Black kind of stuff. But so speaking of projects crossing over, there was a song that Maddie and I had done with his friend Nate, who we drove up to his house in Castle Rock out in Colorado, and we basically just had the drum beat. Maddie and I had written a chorus. We ended up not using it. You know, everything went way different than we thought it would. And so like we put this song out with Nate called These Things Happen. And we've talked about it since, and we're like, it was a fun experience, but it wasn't like, it's not our favorite song at all that we've ever done. And but we had this really good chorus idea written because the whole theme of the song was like, you know, all these things that can go wrong in life, but it's just like, these things happen, you know, like Maddie's car got stolen out of his driveway, or like you lose your job, or like,
that's crazy.
You know, it's just like one of those things where it's just like you get laid off or you get broken up with, and it's just, you know, like it's just
All
life.
America Rejects have a song about that.
Really?
It's called Move Along.
Oh God. But yeah, so like we had this cool chorus written and it didn't end up getting used. So I basically recorded These Things Happen. I don't want to call it like part 2, but it's basically like my version of it. So
it's cool when you use like a song falls through or something like that, and you still salvage an idea or a piece of it. Like I've done that.
Yeah,
I've done the same kind of concept, and like sometimes it works out better. You're like,
yeah.
Wow, this is actually probably better than what would have been the song.
Well, and that's partially why I did it too, because like I wasn't thrilled with how that song turned out, and it was like nothing personal against Nate. It was just like his production philosophy is completely different from mine, whereas I'm like, you know, like you and I, it's like layers, or like what could we add to this, or how could we flesh this out more, whereas he was like simple. So it was one of those things, like we weren't, like I said, it was a fun experience. Nate's a really cool guy, but like I just wasn't really stoked on how the song turned out. So
yes,
like
you hate him.
Yeah, no, I made my own version, and like I even said to Maddie, I was like, "Yo, dude, like I'm not trying to like. Yeah, I was like, I don't want this song to come out and you'd be like, what the fuck? And he's like, I would never have taken it that way. He's like, totally cool. Like, do not care. He's like, I'm excited to hear it. So, but yeah, I'm kind of doing that same thing where I'm like, I rehashed something that I wasn't maybe crazy about at first.
Yeah.
But yeah, good stuff, dude. Yeah, 459 is so good though. I still listen to it pretty regularly.
I listen to it sometimes too. I think a couple months ago I listened to it and yeah, I was like, wow, I forgot how good this was.
Well, and like my whole first book, when I was like working on like not sequencing, but like putting it together, right? Putting the manuscript together, like a lot of I pretty much just listened to a lot of like your music, Food Truck's music. Like it was one of those things. I was so far from home and I was putting all this stuff together that was like about home. So I was trying to get that like vibe in my head of like, I wanted people to like experience like where the book was written about. You know what I'm saying? Like one of those things where it sucks them in. So I was like listening to that kind of stuff. But yeah, dude, yeah, it's still really good.
Thank you.
To this day. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we kind of move forward a little bit?
No, I think just proud of 459. I always love it. You know.
What's your favorite song?
Man.
I know you said you love Jumpstart, and that's
I think Jumpstart's the best one, but my favorite one. Oh my god! Yeah, Lo-Fi Love's my favorite because
is that the one with
melody,
the cool shift?
Yeah, it shifts into a different. It goes from one. It goes from one chord progression, and then like the half the song is one progression, just 4 chords, and then it switches. It almost sounds like a key change.
Yeah,
it's not. And I reused the chorus, but it sounds so much more powerful with these different chords.
Yeah.
No one understands you like I do. No one can stand you like I do. Like I do. I can see it in your face. You're gonna let go.
And I love that one. There's like a pause at the end, like a fake out kind of chorus pause, and it comes back, and I like it fits in my range really well because I can sing like a high octave, but I can also go underneath and do a low octave. So and the song was passionate, like the lyrics were real, and I could still like when I hear that song, it still makes me feel something. You know?
What sparked like you? Like, was there any like specific influence behind those songs other than just like making music without limits?
Definitely.
Like was it like what was going on maybe in your head or in your life at that time that was like leading to those songs being
I
made?
think just being young and confused, but also discovering like
sexually confused.
Yeah, discovering like some of the success that Food Truck had, like feeling like we belonged in the scene. Like all good stuff like that, but then bad stuff like not knowing what I want to do in life, like personally, but feeling like I found this new scene and I belong. So it was like a sense of belonging, but a sense of like feeling like lost, you know?
Sure.
Which is a weird feeling, you know? Like feeling cold and warm at the same time. What was the last thing I was going to say about that? 459 was great. I was talking about just being lost. I don't know. I had something very important. Oh, the inspiration. Yeah. There was an artist called Corbin. He used to be called Spooky Black, and he changed his name to Corbin, which is like his actual name. And he's like my age, so he's probably 26 now. And he makes music like 459. So that inspired me. And the EP sounds very similar to his sound, so I 100% give him credit because I was really, really into Corbin at that time, and then I made the EP around the same time. So, like, you know, obviously my regular influences: Bob Dylan, Kendrick Lamar, Third Eye Blind.
Yeah.
This is before I really liked Mom Jean, so I can't even give them credit. But Corbin was my number one. I really liked what he did. His whole sound is lo-fi. and he's a great singer, good songwriter. So like definitely, I would say I envy him, and I definitely was influenced by his sound.
Nice. Hell yeah, dude. Highly recommend those listening to go check out 459. It's still on Spotify, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's on Spotify.
Yeah, so go check it out if you haven't ever listened to it. It's just a really nice listen. For me, it's just so vibey. Like, I think that's what it is it's like a feeling, you know. It's not just like I'm listening to a song. It's like,
the most cohesive thing I made,
yeah,
for sure. Each song could just be connected, you know.
So I think it's one of the things that you said is really good, and it'll tie us into our closing point. You were saying about, you know, just being young and like not knowing what you want to do with your life. So another funny, interesting thing was, so if we're looking back, right, 4 years ago on that second episode that we did, how different life was, and like we were talking about inexperience and that kind of stuff. And I remember that's when you had been at the car wash for like almost a year.
Yeah.
And I was doing the overnight baking thing at Giant for, we got our jobs like almost at the same time. It was kind of crazy how that worked out. But, so it's funny like to see like where we're at now. Like I'm still baking. I'm just baking for a different company now. And like I have a lot more experience. I've done so much more.
You've baked a couple donuts now.
Yeah. Yeah.
A dozen.
Yeah. And then you now are like in a completely different career field, and
I'm a porn star now.
oh my god.
I'm a plumber now.
Yeah, John loves those dirty pipes.
I love pipes.
No, he only does new pipes.
Yeah. Well, I love car washing. That's what got me into it.
Yeah.
I liked working on. So I worked at a car wash. There's a lot of mechanical things going on in there, a lot of water. So I kind of started learning about that stuff,
Well, yeah,
and I really liked it. And
when stuff would break, did you have to like fix stuff?
Yeah, stuff would break. Well, if you think about it, there's like 1,000 different little functions going on.
Yeah.
And so the one trade that like kind of coincided with car washing the most was plumbing. And I really liked it, and so I was like, you know what, maybe I should get into that. And then I just applied to a couple places, started out as like a plumbing helper, now I'm a plumbing apprentice, and I'm actually going to school online to get certified, but I'm working, you know, Monday through Friday, so getting my hours in that way too. And I love it. I'm a creative person, and I never thought about it that way, but like trades are perfect for creative, hands-on people.
Sure.
So it works out. It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and right now I'm plumbing, and I really do like it.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I feel like I could never go back to doing something like mundane. Like we talked about on a couple episodes, like I did warehousing, and it was just pick. You're just a number, and you're just reaching for a number. And then like getting into baking, like I've had jobs that suck so bad because you have to get up in like the middle of the night, you don't sleep, you work with miserable fucking people like in retail. But then like I've had those really rewarding jobs, like my job right now. Like it feels like I'm like friends with pretty much everyone in the department. Everyone's really cool. It's like laid back, it's chilled out, and like it's hands-on enough that like I'm still doing stuff and being creative, and like my manager's always like encouraging me to like just, you know, be creative, or like not go the extra mile, because I hate that term, but you know, like when it comes to certain things, she's like, oh, just like put your own twist on it, like go for it, I trust you, like whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like I remember when we got back from Colorado, I had considered like, okay, I don't want to, because I hate retail. I hate the retail machine, right, where it's like, we want you to be available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you know, holidays, everything is open, and you deal with the shitty public, but like,
yeah, and they're getting worse.
Oh my God. Yeah. I want to do a Men at Work at part 2 at some point to talk more about, you know, but it's like, so I had looked into, you know, switching career fields. And I remember when I was job hunting the one day, I saw Aaron works for Cigars International, and they were going to be hiring like customer service reps. And
what does he do for them?
I don't know. I honestly don't know exactly. I've talked to him about it before, but I don't exactly know. But
that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he works in one of their offices in the area. But I saw this listing, and I was like, hey man, like I talked to him about it, and you know, he sent me the internal listing. He's like, if you put an application in, let me know. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, do I want to go sit at a fucking desk all day? Like I would be so bored
for the right price.
I don't know. I mean, I know that's where I'm like, you know, but the money or I don't know. But either way,
yeah, right.
But yeah, so I don't know, just to tie that all in, like being a creative person, you do kind of need like an engaging job. Also, I don't want to say hands-on, but something that's engaging.
I'm very much like ADHD or just something like that. I've never been diagnosed, but like hyperactive and
hypersexual.
Yeah, hypersexual, hyperactive, all that. But so I need an engaging job, like he said.
Yeah.
Like it's more interesting, number one, but number two, I function better. It's not just, oh, I like this, I like that. It's like I do better. I excel usually. Whenever I do something I actually like doing,
for sure.
That's probably everybody. I don't know why I'm making it just me, but I do something I actually like, I excel, and I grow and I do good. So it's like,
well, yeah, and there's a difference too. Like, so I've had multiple baking jobs, and like the ones that I hated, even though I was hands-on, I hated them because I didn't excel because I was like mentally not in it. But like, whereas
you gotta
like
be
now,
stimulated.
Yeah, like where I am now, it's like I feel like I'm engaged and I excel because I like being there and I like what I'm doing, and and it helps when you, not that I like support corporations or companies or anything,
but
like
you
that.
like where you work.
Yeah, like I'm not like fuck Weiss, it's like I like the company.
I love Weiss. Weiss is my favorite. My second favorite now is Ideal. There's a store that opened up down the street.
I have a funny story about that.
Awesome store in Southside Bethlehem, right by Lehigh University.
Yeah,
great store. Weiss is my true number one, but Ideal is a close second. They've been so good to me. I love the people that work there. I love, like, they always have everything I want, and it's literally like super close to my house.
Yeah,
it's like prices are good. Like, what's not to like?
Before we jump into our wrapping point, I have a funny story about Ideal. So was that like remodeled like recently within the last few years?
Yeah. So like 4 years ago, it was a different store.
Okay, and it was
and
really
that store shut down.
Right?
Yeah, I don't remember what the store was called, but it was like it was another like supermarket type store.
Yeah,
and it went out of business or shut down, and then it was vacant for a couple of years, and then they like just knocked the building down and just built a whole new building. That's why I was saying it's amazing. It's brand new everything, and it's really nice. It's
funny, when I was a senior, so doing my community
2016.
Yeah, when I was doing my community service to graduate. The church that I grew up going to, they went to the New Bethany Ministries church, like right across the street, or it's like up the street, or it's like right near there. They would go there once a month and like cook lunch and serve it to the homeless. And I remember the 1 month I went, and it was like one of those crazy places. Like, it's a church and it has like this whole kitchen inside of it, like an industrial kitchen. They've got like an industrial oven. They've got all sorts of stuff, and like a huge food pantry, just like shelves and shit, like with those, apocalypse sized cans of whatever.
Oh yeah, tomato soup or something.
Yeah. So I went in, and the like the head lady that I guess like works at New Bethany was like, "Oh, we're making tuna noodle casserole today, but like we don't have any tuna." And so I was like, so part of what I did that day is like I went with her and we walked down the street to whatever it was before it was Ideal, and it was so fucking shitty, and it was all like run down and like, and it was like filthy, and so we basically cleared all the tuna off the shelf, and like because it was like the little like single size cans, and so we like cleared it all off. She bought all of it, and then we brought it up the hill or whatever, and oh dude, I remember opening that. I don't know if it was bad. I don't know if it was like, how some stores have like stuff that's like, I'm doing air quotes, like expired.
Yeah.
Where it's like you get it for like half price, but it smelled so bad. It was like the stinkiest.
Did she use it all?
Oh yeah, we used all of it. It was like the stinkiest tuna I've ever smelled. It was like dark. It looked nasty.
Oh man.
And I, it was funny. So basically we would make all this food, right? And then there was like a kind of like a lunch line area, right? Where you would have station setups. So there'd be like your drinks, there'd be like the main course, the sides, maybe like a little dessert or coffee or something. And we would all line up, and then we'd serve, they'd let in all the homeless, and we would serve them lunch. And that week, they fucking hated it. They they were the tuna noodle casserole. They were looking at it like, what the fuck is this? And like, I remember a couple of them like they'd pick around it and they just like threw it away. It was so bad.
You know your food's bad.
Oh my
when
God.
the homeless who are probably hungry aren't eating
Oh,
it.
dude, it was so bad. But yeah,
It wasn't a hit.
it was whatever ideal was before it was ideal. I remember the shopping carts had these giant poles on them so that people couldn't steal them. They like couldn't get them out the door.
That's what they need now. I already saw someone steal an Ideal cart.
Yeah, it's oh man. But yeah, good times. Ideal, please sponsor us. I've never been in there. I'll have to go in there sometime.
It's just like if you've ever been inside a brand new grocery store. Just
Hell yeah.
super state of the art, whatever's
that's how-
new, you know.
That's how the Weiss's that I work at, they built it in 2021, so it's like still brand new.
Yeah, it's
so
exactly. I've been to that Weiss. It's exactly like that. It's just
Yeah.
brand new, super nice.
But yeah, so let's wrap up now. I had a point here. So we talked a lot about growing up, right, and becoming more wise and like kind of finding your way. Being that, you know, like I said, 4 years ago, I started this podcast and I feel like I've grown a lot. I've changed a lot. I've learned a lot about myself and other people and just how to like be a better person, I guess. If you had to give like your younger self like a piece of advice, like if you could go back in time and see John from 5-10 years ago, like what would you tell him?
I beat his ass.
I would do the same to myself, honestly.
I would just be like, believe in yourself, man. Like, there's so many times I look back where I'm like, what was I so scared of? Like
Yeah.
sometimes you hype up that anxiety, you like let it snowball, and so I think what I would tell myself is something that I already know. Believe in yourself, which is corny, but it's so true, man. Because that's where the most beautiful things come from. Like we're talking about just letting it flow and just writing songs and you know, not filtering yourself to the extent that you normally do. Because sometimes that's when you make the most beautiful product. And it's the same thing with yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. Believe in yourself, because you could really prosper and grow into something great. But if you're always like shitting on yourself and kind of like gatekeeping yourself and stopping yourself every 2 seconds, you're getting in your own way. Just get out of the way. Believe in yourself. You're going to make mistakes. And as the commemorate always said, you can fail and try, but don't, or you can try and fail, but don't fail to try.
Dude, you always go back.
I know.
To that.
I always go back to that, and I always mess that one up somehow. But yeah, you can try and fail, but don't fail to try, or never fail to try. You get the point.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's idle hands are the devil's workshop. That's another one. That's just like an old expression, but it's true. The worst thing you can do is sit on your hands and do nothing. It's better to just go for something and mess up and then learn from it and move on. And by the time you learn from it and you do it right, you could have still been there sitting on your hands wondering, whoa, what do I do? What if? Because the what if will eat you up the most.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you look back and think about mistakes, but sometimes mistakes need to be made for you to learn how to do things the right way.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to learn that, because you want to be a perfectionist and you want to do everything right the first time, but that's not how the world works.
Yeah. Well,
and everybody's in their own zone. If you mess up, someone might look over and go, oh, Matt messed up.
Yeah.
And they go right back to their world, because everybody is the main character in their little story.
Yeah.
So no one gives a shit when you mess up that bad. The time they really care is when you mess up and it affects them. Your mess up is so bad that you're messing with other people.
Yeah.
So that's just one thing, is believe in yourself and understand that the only way to really learn stuff sometimes is you have to fail. So don't be afraid to fail.
Oh yeah. It's funny. That's exactly what I said on my podcast when my book came out, because my publisher does one, and I said, like, don't be afraid to fail. Because like as a writer, I mean, like I could have put my book out and no one could have bought it. And I'm almost at 300 sales by the end of the year. So it's like that to me. I'm like, well, I guess
that's a success.
I did better. But yeah, no, that's so true, man.
You would have never made those 300 sales if you maybe bit your tongue more, or maybe dragged your feet, or maybe didn't try your best, or maybe were scared.
It's funny, when I submitted I just put a submission in on Indie Earth's website because I found them on the back of a book in Colorado at this local bookstore. And it took about a week, but Floor, the head of my publisher, reached out to me. She's like, hey, like, can you send me some samples? And then I was like, yeah, sure. So I sent her some samples, and she's like, we would like to publish you. And I was like, holy shit. Like, it was one of those, I didn't respond for 2 weeks because I was like scared. I was like, oh my God. But yeah, no, it was just
I
like,
thought you were dead.
yeah, I was like, oh my God. But yeah, no, it's definitely true. Like, when you go all in yourself, and yeah. That's
Only
shit.
good things happen when you really try and you really put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Like I said, the worst thing that could happen is it doesn't work out, but you can take that information and use that to learn what went wrong and how to do better. And sometimes it's not even your fault. Like, it's the whole rejection theory.
And
like, sometimes somebody might reject you if you're interested in being someone's friend, or, you know, romantically maybe. And it's like, it might just not be the right time. You know what I mean? Like, it's not always just you know, you think everything's about you, but sometimes it's like they're not ready. Sometimes the situation wasn't ready. Sometimes the job wasn't hiring. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's so many variables to life, and we're too quick to think, oh, it's me, I'm the problem.
Yeah.
And sometimes you are, absolutely, but I think sometimes we're too hard on each other, and we need to learn to believe in ourselves more. And positivity too. Yeah. Positivity can come off as corny or fake sometimes, but it's so much. It's like, think about complimenting someone. It's so much harder to go up to somebody and say, hey, I love your shirt, or I love your hair, or something. It takes so much more energy, but it feels so good for you, and it feels so good for them.
Yeah.
Versus just complaining and talking shit. Like, that's the easiest thing to do that we can do any second. But like,
sure,
the extra effort is always worth it in my eyes, because you will feel better as long as well as whoever you're complimenting.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, this has been a really good episode, man. I think we're going to wrap up here. Thanks to everyone who's still listening and who made it this far. Definitely go give us a follow on Instagram. Go give us a follow on YouTube, Spotify. Listen to our other episodes. We got a whole bunch of stuff on there. Definitely check out Full Circle and the episode we did about John's album Dirty Couch. John, thanks for coming on, man. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Hopefully they made to the 10-hour mark.
And so it's the end of November when this drops. So I mean, I guess, I had some plans for December, but we're kind of moving things around, so I guess it'll be a surprise. Everyone tune into Instagram and see what's going on in December. I'm thinking 2 Christmas episodes, so tune back in next time on Fueled by Coffee Podcast.